Welcome to the 110th edition of our CU Town Hall. We're excited to have everyone here. I know we got some special guests, my buddy Lou, and as always, Glenn Servati, which we'll get to in a little bit. But excited to have some new sponsors, and so we're going to go over a few things here today. So let's get rolling. Well, first of all, and I didn't see Mike here. I don't know, Mike, you here? I didn't see him. Right. I'm not sure he's here yet. But anyway, so just for a little background for everybody that, sometimes you're new here and you're hearing new things. But in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we didn't know what to do. And I can remember, it's so funny when I look back on how we started this. We had always been using Zoom, and it was something that we were pretty addicted to in the big organization. And I said, we got this Zoom account and we could use it for just allowing people to come in. Why don't we do that and just start something where people could start sharing information about what's happening with the pandemic? And I think the first one we shot out and said we're going to do, we got like, I don't know, a couple hundred people showed up. And but before I did it, I made a call. And my first call for anything like this is always Mike Lawson. Mike and I have been friends for a long, long time. And I said, Mike, I want to do this to try to help out people. I feel like if we get a bunch of people on the phone, we could do more information sharing. And I got to tell you, that was really powerful. For those of you who've been with us since the beginning, amazing things happened from that. We shared information about, down to the sneeze shields. And then if you remember the PPP loans and the payments and the fraud that went with that. And it was just amazing to have everybody go around. But it wasn't a forum where I was talking to anybody. It was just us trying to listen to the folks on the phone and learn what was happening and trying to get a feel for what was out there and share or connect each other to share solutions. And so it was born out of that, and it continued that way. And so we're super excited to continue that on. And when Mike is here, he's always an amazing help. But we've got a lot of good things about to happen, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. But let's go on here. So today we have special guests. We have the one, the only. He's a managing principal of 420 Advisors. So if you're doing cannabis at your credit union, he's the guy. He's all about the cannabis. No one knows more about cannabis than Glenn Servati. Not actually doing the business of it, more just the drug itself. No,
have we hit the expiration date on this yet?
It's never going to end for me, because you named your company 154, and every time I see it, I think it should be 420. And then another great friend and long time, maybe from day one, listener of our podcast, and just one of the best guys in the industry, Lou Grilli. Lou, welcome. And today we're going to have them talking about a few things, and they're going to kind of run this a little bit more than me than usual. I'm going to be a little bit more of a spectator today. So I'm excited to hear this conversation, and as always, I'll participate in it, but we'd love to get some. Remember that you can always chime in on the messenger or raise your hand. I've seen people, I don't know if you've seen this, but it does this new thing now. If you put your thumb up, the AI picks it up and puts your thumb on the screen. You guys seen that? Yeah, watch my screen. There it is. There it goes. Yep. Yeah, everybody try it. And there's another one you can do. I tried it. It doesn't work. It's a different finger, but we'll I digress. So if you don't have it turned on, it won't do it. It's the AI companion stuff. So but, it works for me. So the rest of y'all losers.
That was just to make us look silly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just want to see everybody raise their thumb. I actually wrote a little program. So let's move along. And we're going to get to we're going to have a special intro here. Oh, today's giveaway there it is, the AI companion. For those of you that are we're going to be doing a giveaway every week, and this week's is really cool. If you don't have one of these, this thing rocks. It's the MetaQuest. I have been super impressed with this device. I've watched these just, grow over the years. We've been playing with these. For those of you that haven't been, you could go to our metabranch.ai. And this is brought to us by the great William Mills, who is with us and been working with us on this for a long time. Scott and Amber are here. Hi, Scott. Hi, guys.
Afternoon.
And they are sponsoring the Wheel of Gifts this week. So if you want your name in the giveaway, you got to put it in the chat. So make sure you put it in there, and we add it to the wheel, because there's folks working behind the scene madly to put your names into this website so that when we run the wheel of spin, your name's in there and you can win. I'm not actually going to play the video just because I feel like our conversation is going to take a bit. So, but you should check this out. It's a really cool device. And I will say, I also have an Apple Vision Pro coming soon. And so I'm going to be checking that out and let you know what I find out about it. But yeah, I think that, there's a lot of things that people have sort of given up technology wise. And I think it was what I said last week or the week before when I talked about my New Year's Eve resolutions is don't give up on some of these other technologies. I think I mentioned it that I saw this great presentation from Kathy Wood, who's the head investor for ARC, and she was talking about how it's been a long time since we've had like this many technologies all evolving at once. And last time was electricity, the car, and the telephone, which you can see those building on each other in industry and everywhere else. Now we have AI, the metaverse, the blockchain platform, and also, believe it or not, a lot of DNA sort of stuff is happening. I was listening to an article this morning about how we're able to determine how some diseases have come to be by extracting the DNA from the bones of like Bronze Age dudes they've dug out of the ground, which was amazing. So this technology is not dead. And I encourage you to continue to experiment with it because it will be a future. We know one day we're going to look back and go at these nasty monitors on our desk, or they'll be our kids' and they'll go, "Ooh, who uses a monitor anymore?" It'll look like I said, one of those old adding machines that you've seen. That's what my laptop looks like to my kids, right? So that day will be here. So let's keep going.
Something on that just occurred to me, John. I was listening to a story about throwback video games on the radio this last week, and somebody kind of, embarrassed mentioned that they still had two CRT TVs in their closet, and CRT equals cathode ray tube, which is the big, round ones used to have. They used to weigh about 10 times more than the ones that do today. And they had to explain to people that TV screens weren't always flat. And B, it was, thought of as maybe a way to get some of these antiquated old video games to still work in their proper environment. But I think it's a great example that, that's the only TV anybody knew until, 20 some years ago. And now it's like actually thought of as like a business.
The living crap out of yourselves by opening one of those. Anyways, let's keep going. Next slide. Oops, I'm going to play the video whether I like it or not. Nope, they're going to move along. All right. And we have a happy birthday to one of the hardest workers here, someone who, behind the scenes, you don't hear a lot about her, but she is continuously working. She's on the LinkedIn, Facebook, every one of our social media sites, and behind the scenes, she's the one that's setting up the wheel and making sure that all the guests are here and that I show up because I wander around during the day, so you have to find me. Jim Yates is going to win for the best background. I like the clear white screen. Maybe he's there, maybe he's not. We just don't know. But happy birthday to you, Madison. Let's all sing together. Go ahead, Elliot, lead us because you're the best vocalist here. Go ahead.
Happy birthday to
To
you.
you. Happy birthday. Oh, there's Jim.
To
To you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
Hey, dear
Madison.
Madison.
Oh, this is awesome. We should do this.
Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
Oh, that's the best. Thank you so much, Madison, for all that you do. Truly.
Of course. It's
All right,
my
let's move
pleasure.
along.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's move along. So we'd like to welcome our newest sponsor, and we have a longtime friend of mine and now working with this organization, Keith Whittle, here with us today, and maybe a few of his other cohorts or his colleagues. You want to say just a little bit before I get going on this, Keith?
Oh, just thanks for the opportunity to be a sponsor. We're very excited to be participating in these town halls, and I know we'll have opportunities to interject about some things that we're doing or our perspectives on certain topics. But just really appreciate the opportunity, John, for you to give us the opportunity to engage with the team and certainly engage with the sponsorship. So thanks to all of you and to John.
Yeah, and I got to hear a little bit yesterday about how they're sort of reinventing themselves, and I'm very impressed. I'm very excited to see where you guys are going with, your FedNow payment system, some thoughts you have around what new digital banking might look like. I thought that was an excellent conversation. So, and I think we're going to have to talk more about that. One thing that I was super excited about that Keith said he's going to do, and I'm going to put him on the spot here so everybody has to hear it. They have hired one of the LLM large language models, AI specialists from Facebook to work with them. And he's promised that he's going to bring him on to this show. But first, he's going to talk to the Innovation Club at length and in depth on technical aspects. But I think we should get him on to here just to kind of talk about what that even means. What does it mean to be an LLM dude? And what does your day look like? You spend all day chatting with, angry, chatbots that don't like you, that want to get outside the rails and, go off and talk about Hitler and stuff. I don't know. So we'll find out. But I'm very curious to see. I don't know of any other company that's done that. I mean, maybe there are, but I haven't heard it. And to me, that's pretty impressive because those guys are few and far between. They're not easy to find. And to get one to come join must, a special vision would, have to be put out because trust me, that dude was not like broke at Facebook. He was, probably, doing very, very well. So he must have saw something very exciting here. So I'm excited to hear about it. So thanks, Keith.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. So let's move along here. Speaking of that, we have other sponsors. Have you heard of CUNA/America's Credit Union? Did you know, Glenn, that next month, well, is it late next month or March? It's next month, right?
March, actually.
Right. You and I will be in Washington, D.C. at one of their premier events, the Government Affairs Conference, otherwise known as GAC. And super excited about heading to that. You and I are actually doing a CEO roundtable together, which is really just a cage fight. They're only letting CEOs in, and we're just going to ref it. They have to show up in a singlet or dressed as their favorite wrestler, pro wrestler, and we're just going to see what happens.
Have lots of folding chairs they can whack each other with. Is that?
Oh yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we have that? No, I think it's very exciting. So, if you're networking is what this business is about. I've often said that, the superpower for credit unions is collaboration, and this forum right here is a great example of that. And so, yeah, well, it depends on how you talk to them. Like, it depends on who you talk to. But Lawson's here. Mike, please speak up. Make yourself known.
You were on such a good roll, John. I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, that's because Robin is no good without Batman, and I was
Robin's no good without Batman.
Yeah, I was just doing my Robin thing, hoping for Batman to show up.
No, it's really a wrestler.
You want to talk a little bit about that merger real fast? Because I know we've been talking to him too.
Do I want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be called America's Credit Union, which is the merger.
I was just throwing that out to the crowd. If anybody knows that, it looks like Julie said yes, I believe so. Now it's America's Credit Union.
The branding seems to be a work in progress, but I have to assume that's the direction.
There's a lot of
it is. They told us this is what they told us to go with, but they're working on transitioning that.
Sure.
And
it takes time.
It's interesting because it really is sort of a harbinger of other mergers. We're seeing Co-op and PSCU, and also a ton of M&A activity in the credit industry. But we'll get there. Did you know, Mike, that you can make a phone call and do True West Credit Union, great credit union, Chris Kearney, king of all things. Probably here. I don't know if he's here. He was supposed to print something for us, but I don't know if he got his printer in time. But and when you talk to them, they don't ask you any questions about like what your blood type is or your DNA. They just automatically know who you are. Did you know that?
I've heard that. Yes. That's
like the best experience. That's what I want. That's how I would like to shop. Like I just go in, I put a bunch of crap in the cart, and I walk out. I tried it, and the people at Walmart were not cool about that at all. And I said, I thought this was, self-checkout. And yeah, it turns out like they want you to, they think I'm a cashier, and that's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah,
But
they'll
this
stop
is,
you at the door, John.
yeah, this is the kind of service that we all need to be really driving towards. And we already mentioned Typhoon, Mike. I know you know those guys real
Yes,
well.
iPhone.
Very
Great.
excited to have them in our town hall orbit.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, and so and I don't know if you heard earlier, but they have apparently kidnapped a member of Meta who's into doing the big AI stuff, and we're planning on having him come talk to us.
Excellent. Oh,
And again, I'm putting Keith on the spot, but he promised. He promised. That's what he
No,
said to
no
me.
kidnapping was involved, but he is a member of the team. Yeah.
So why do you have all that
on the
duct
up and
tape?
up.
Why do you have all that duct tape on his mouth during the meeting? I don't know. Just a lot of squirming.
We want to be careful as to what he discloses. That's why.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. You only take the tape off. Infinia is the new suite of their digital payment solutions, and we're going to get to more of that. But very exciting, and very glad to have them with us. This is just, like I said, it just keeps getting better. So let's keep going. So let's get to today's talk. So we've got two. Mike, you and I are just, we're here to just be guardrails, right? Because I know these two are going to fight.
Popcorn out.
You know they hate each other. So Glenn was talking all week. He's been talking trash about it's like the Super Bowl matchup. Yeah,
about regulatory. All right.
Yeah. Yes. All right, Glenn, take it away.
Sure. So this is actually, I could argue maybe, it's not an inverse order of importance, but Lou and I both agree that probably the thing we want to spend the most time on is the open banking Section 1033 piece. Section 1033 always sounds way too legalese and wonky, but I think people know what open banking is. But we thought we'd just rattle through the other ones more quickly and focus most of our time on that last bullet point. Agreed. And Lou, I was originally going to rattle through these without you because Lou is just back from the dentist. And I thought I might have to kind of dance the way John was dancing until Mike got here. But Lou, you're here, right?
I'm here.
So
Yeah,
the first one, I would say the first one is probably the second most important. And there's been a little bit more development on that. If you're not familiar, again, sounds very wonky. Regulation II has to do with debit card interchange, everyone's favorite, the Durbin Amendment. As you're probably familiar, the Fed put out a request for comment last year, back in the kind of fall time frame, because they have come up with a new proposal that will again decrease the allowable interchange for debit cards. In theory, the way it's positioned is that it only affects credit unions of 10 billion, or any financial institution of $10 billion and up in assets. Anybody who's taken the most fundamental of economics classes knows that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because once the price is set in the marketplace, you don't automatically then get to just have a different price out there for the smaller credit unions, or else people are going to leave. So, that does, and the evidence has shown already, based on when they've tracked this since the original Durbin Amendment took place back in the early 2010, 2011 era, that the trend has been downward for other institutions as well. So they have actually put out a proposal that would take the price per transaction down from 21 cents down to 21 basis points, I should say, to 14 basis points. And then there's a little bit more that can go on top of that for fraud prevention and things like that. Ironically, the 14 cents is roughly what they were going to propose it be in the first place when they put the Durbin Amendment in effect back in the 2010 timeframe. And they got so much pushback in terms of comment letters that they wound up compromising to 21 cents. Well, presumably because of scale economies, but somehow not really reflecting inflation, they've decided now we're to the point that we need 14 cents. They got so many comments on this that the comment period's now been extended out till May. They've also released some new data that in theory, they say, supports their argument of why this is something that ought to be done. If you can, Melissa or Madison, a couple of links, if people haven't seen these. I think that the ABA put out, and in this case, the ABA is not the American Bankers Association, it's the American Bar Association. It's the lawyers who wrote a piece up about, I think what they called it, the Fed's proposing a sea change in debit interchange, which I think is actually pretty accurate. I thought it was one of the better write-ups that I've seen. So that, I see, thank you, Melissa, she's put that in the box. So I think that gives you a little bit of a synopsis there. And then there was the other one that the Fed just recently released when they extended their comment deadline with this additional data. And to me, it doesn't really prove their point because it shows that different institutions face different costs of debit. It doesn't show a dimension of the size of the institutions, but a lot of the comment letters have shown that they seem to be basing their analysis on the largest institutions, the Chases and the B of A's, who have these massive bases that they can spread their fixed costs over. So it's quite conceivable that they're actually setting a price that's below underwater for a good number of, 10 to $20 billion institutions, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was looking at this, and the thing I thought was interesting, and Lou, maybe you can comment on this from your perspective, but so they're looking at like a 30% decrease in the fees for just basically average transactions, right?
Correct.
And then just a slight increase from 1 cent to 1.3 cents for the fraud prevention. Yeah, exactly. But the 30% drop, I'm thinking would translate, and this is, I think, where you're going, because if I'm on this call, what I want to know is how is this going to affect my interchange? Because in general, interchange is 20 to 25% of revenue, non-interest income for credit unions. So is it that 30% drop would mean if it's not related to large organizations, because it's still, they're saying that the $10 billion that may go away too. So does that mean that's going to drop? And it also, I thought, said that they got like a formula that they're going to run like on a quarterly basis. But go ahead. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, the last one I was just going to get to. It's not quarterly. It's every 2 years. But again, that seems really odd. And something tells me that one's going to fall by the wayside, but we'll see. I wouldn't want to count on that. What they're saying is they put out these surveys, and they said, they were very clear, voluntary surveys of large institutions to gather pricing in terms of what the cost basis looks like on debit interchange. Based on what they're proposing, they're going to get rid of the comment periods, and every 2 years, part of this is I think they just don't like the headache, which is why they haven't done this since they started this over 10 years ago. Every 2 years, they would reset it based on this voluntary survey of large institutions, which again is going to be skewed toward the absolute lowest possible price because it's only the large institutions that are actually responding. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me either, especially getting rid of the comment period. So yeah, that's an additional point. But I think if there's any saving grace in this, it already looked like it probably wasn't going to hit the 2024 fiscal year by the time they implemented it. Now that they've extended the comment period, I think we can probably safely assume it won't affect 2024. For the over 10 billions, it's a fall off the cliff. It's like it goes in effect one day and 25% or 30%, like you say, just is wiped off the top. For the smaller institutions, there'll be a gradual decline if history is any experience based on the way it's happened. Lou, am I stating this in accordance with the way you're thinking about it?
Yep, exactly. And let me just pile on here with some data. Take it with a grain of salt because it was done by the Consumer Bankers Association, CBA. I don't know who's behind it, but their research, which just came out, says when the current regulation was implemented in 2011, free debit accounts, free DDAs, became much less common. Minimum monthly balances were increased. Monthly maintenance fees increased by an average 42% of the reduction in interchange at that time. In other words, almost half of the decrease in interchange was replaced by additional fees. And there's no reason to believe that won't happen again and continue to happen now every 2 years. At the same time, economists, including those at the Fed, concluded there was no measurable proof that lowered interchange was passed on in the form of consumer savings. So it's reasonable to believe that the same thing will happen. Lower interchange will not be passed on as consumer savings this time either.
Agreed.
So I want to just piggyback on that a little bit, Lou. So the question I have about that is, so I don't know any credit unions that are charging a fee, for their checking account right now. They're free checking. I mean, it's called free checking for a reason. I don't know very many that are pulling in a minimum balance and that would be doing this. But it seems to me that of the two, the minimum balance would be the best way to go because it helps with a scenario that everybody's having trouble with, which is, liquidity and cost of funds. But, one of the challenges with all of that is the fact that we've got the Venmos and the PayPals and all of these things that are sort of eating away at that DDA account's minimum balance because it grabs money in chunks and not in precise amounts. So you move $200 over there, then you kind of spend that till it goes away. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is there recommendations or is PSU looking into that? Or I'm just curious.
That's that side of the credit union business we don't necessarily get into, but I just want to back up on your statement. I'm just looking at some research here that credit unions don't charge for their checking accounts, shared draft accounts, and
I don't know
also
they
don't
do.
impose. I'm pretty positive that a credit union in Tampa that you used to be associated with, not Suncoast, does do that.
Oh, you mean that my brother runs?
So
he's got the same last name as me, but he's not my brother.
Yeah. Go premium.
You get back to this point that there are so many services that are not directly charged for. So if one revenue stream gets cut off, obviously you have to find a way to recoup those costs. So you're going to look to other places. I think that again, it's pretty fundamental economics 101.
Well,
Lou,
it is. It isn't.
Somebody mentioned, Lou, do you have the link to that CBA study? If you can put it in the chat, because somebody was mentioning, I'd like to see it myself.
Yeah. I gotta look that up. I'm still looking up the credit union charging it's $4.95 a month, and I'm trying to find the minimum balance.
Yeah, I didn't do it. That happened after I left.
Sure.
Which was 2002. So. But no, I don't disagree that. I'm just curious. For every cause, there's a resulting effect, and what would be that on this? But what's interesting is what I never hear, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head there, was instead of passing that cost on the consumers, at some point we have to start deprecating some channels. I think, like, how much more money are you going to spend on the IVR or the VRU, and what does that savings bring to you with regard to making up for that? I think there's some OpEx and other things that can be looked at before you pass that along to the consumer. I also think that educating the consumer that, hey, keeping your money over in Venmo, if it ever comes to it, it can't come back the other way. And so you need to be, educating on these products and services that continue to pop up that take a big bite out of those balances is
it can come back the other way. Not enough people do it. I walk down the hallway and bug my wife about once every 6 weeks and say, hey, hasn't your Venmo balance kind of increased again? And she goes, oh yeah. And I'm like, well, could you please transfer it over to the deposit account? And she does.
You sure? Or she just spend it? She goes, sure.
No, I do find it. It does show up a couple days later. So it does happen. Did anybody? I felt stupid for not knowing this. And I'm wondering if everybody else is going to nod and say, oh, of course, I knew that. Did you know that you can actually direct deposit your paycheck into your Venmo account?
I learned that the other day, and your PayPal account. Both of those you can do.
I was dumbfounded by that. At that point,
your Cash App account. So those are all kind of universal aspects now.
I mean, two things to that. To me, one is at that point, how is it not a bank account? And two, what percentage, if you're depositing your paycheck in there, what percentage of the consumers doing that are under the false illusion? And I'm told that it can be insured, but isn't necessarily FDIC insured.
No, I think you have to call like Progressive or, I'd like to insure my Venmo account. It's kind of like insuring. It's like getting renter's insurance.
I don't know what percentage of them are. There's something that the way that they set it up in the background, they can be insured in terms of the way they parcel it out. But I guess that one really kind of knocked me on the side of the head. Well, that's a step beyond where I thought we were at.
I would love to know if anybody's done any research, maybe Mark Wilson, on how much money is going out to the Venmos, Cash Apps, PayPal, so forth and so on a regular basis these days. Like, is that increasing? And I also am curious if anybody's done any research on if they've lost any direct deposit to, these players. I think that might be something for the Innovation Club to run
Direct
as a
deposit
report.
in particular, I'd be very interested in.
Yeah.
Well, we've already spent a lot more time than I expected to on this one. If we want to get to the open banking, I'm going to rattle off the next two really fast.
Okay, I'll go. I will not ask questions. Sorry. I have
And
questions about the open banking, though. I have a lot of things.
And that's where we want to spend the majority of the time. And Lou, you kind of alluded to this already. The Credit Card Competition Act, it's basically Durbin for credit cards. It's an oversimplification, but that's what they're looking at. It was looking pretty, strong, like an opportunity, a potential danger that it could have passed late last year. That didn't happen. There's so much noise right now in Congress with the potential shutdown, the funding of, other different, global conflicts. It doesn't seem to be on the cusp right now, but I've heard several folks close to the legislation say it's not dead and it could very well rear its head again in the second quarter. So be aware of that one. I find this one very interesting again because of the different parties that it pits against each other. On that one, Lou?
There has been some discussions I've been part of that people have asked, well, this applies to financial institutions 1 billion and up, which means there's exactly one credit union. Wait, 1 billion? No, what's the right number? 100 billion. What? No, 100 billion, right?
I thought it was 25 billion.
25 billion? All right.
It's high.
Yeah,
it's a high number, and I think there is one
exactly,
credit. Yeah.
There's only one credit union that would be impacted by the Credit Card Competition Act. So theoretically, credit unions, all credit unions but one, and many, many community banks could take advantage of the fact that Wells, Chase, B of A have to basically stop doing their rich rewards, 2% cash back on every transaction on a Wells Cashfly Visa, active cash Visa, whatever. And then make it so that would make the credit unions cards and community banks cards more attractive. That is one argument, but the argument may break down for two reasons. One, the cost for all issuers from the processors you'll start to see increased because there's additional infrastructure in order to implement the Credit Card Competition Act. And then there's big concern, maybe unfounded, but given what the last bullet was, is very plausible that once you open it up to credit cards now must be a choice of routing by the merchant, will then either lower the threshold from 25 billion down to whatever, or now start to put interchange limits on credit cards as well. And so closing the door early on would be better for issuers in general.
And I'm definitely in that camp. I think this is one of those wedge issues where once you open the door, it's going to wind up hurting everybody. I agree that in the short term, if you take a very limited view, it's either no effect or even arguably, as you say, a net positive for smaller institutions. I don't think if you look down the road, that would be the case.
Exactly.
Lou was right. Yeah. It's 100 billion.
100 billion. Okay. But again, it's one, and I believe that still leaves you with one credit union. Right?
But I really like his point. I think he's onto something there. There's never been a better time once this happens.
When they can't, first they came for my neighbor. I didn't say anything. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to say anything.
And then they came for my rewards points. And they didn't say. Yep.
CFPB, overdraft junk. I mean, everybody's been hearing a lot about junk fees. I mean, that's one of the big talking points, and obviously a very popular one. And it's a lot of junk fees that I really despise. The resort fee at the hotel is the top of my list. But overdraft fees have basically gotten swept up in that. That's something else that we're going to see changes made to. I think a lot of banks have already taken the preemptive step, saying rather than make it look like it's being done to them, they'll try to get some positive points by bringing down their overdraft fees. Just like everything else we've talked about. Are they too high? Yeah, they're too high. I agree. But the bottom line is it's funding other things that we're not charging for, and it's a drop in revenue that has to be made up someplace. So just something else to be aware of. It's coming. You're probably going to, even if it doesn't officially happen, you might wind up getting jawbone down just in the marketplace by other. I've seen some statistics, I think it's to some extent kind of slanted, but credit unions tend to have higher overdraft fees, is what I've read. I believe the ICBA has said. So that is not.
I want to just take a quick contrary position,
Sure.
Glenn.
Yeah.
And I'm just echoing what an article that was intriguing in CU Insight, that the advocacy groups, the leagues, the America's Credit Union, the NAFCU, CUNA, advocacy groups are all trying to protect credit unions' ability to charge these junk fees, which is not a well stated way of saying it. But the opposite is, wait, credit unions exist for the best interest of their members, for the financial well-being of their members. Shouldn't credit unions be taking the position that, yes, let's eliminate all junk fees, level the playing field, because we care about our members. We're a member of the community. And now those big banks which rely on these fees, high fees, will have to figure out something else. The article that I read by the California and Nevada Credit Union League president gave these stats: 78%. Like, why don't you need this regulation? Because credit unions already care. 78% intervene when a member engages in frequent overdraft. 71% provide targeted outreach or education to members who miss payments. That sounds good. Why isn't it 100? That means, given those stats, there's 1,200 credit unions that don't do those things. And here's my personal example. I'm on a rant now. I set up a bill pay for Friday morning, sizable bill, credit card bill, and I forgot to move the funds on Thursday evening from my money market to my share draft. The bill pay did not get paid because I didn't have the funds, and I was charged a $35 NSF fee by that credit union that we were just referring to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It did not cost the credit union $35 to reject that ACH request from the bill pay vendor.
John, you better give your brother a call.
I just kind of put in a little bit of a post. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we want to get to the last one, but I see your point. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do as credit unions that are contradictory to sort of our charter in some ways. And I think it's because I worry, and this is what I asked the question in the thing here, how much would removing these fees cost? So I don't know if any CU's done the math on, like, example of that overdraft fee, by the way, is very specific. Like, that's not trivial to do with the system they're on. You have to actually make it happen. But if it's not a lot, then I would agree with you. But then I also would argue that those fees are what's allowing credit unions to stay in the game. Some of the medium and mid, smaller size credit unions to stay in the game from a technology standpoint. And unfortunately, that's more and more becoming the key differentiator for services as the generations continue to flock to those kinds of services. So if you start to lose all this revenue and you don't charge for anything, you don't charge for checking accounts, and you don't charge for home banking and all these free service, and on top of that, you never deprecate anything like the IVR, or I've seen ones like it still supports the old rotary phone. Have you seen it'll call in if you're on a rotary phone? Oh, really? Okay, who has one of those left? But I don't know. I'm just curious. I think it's something to look into.
No, I think there's again, we could have a whole conversation just on this one. And then I personally think that the idea of charging zero overdraft fees is a moral hazard, because then what's the point of even keeping money in your account? I mean, you're starting to already see,
you just decline everything. I mean, you just would say no.
Oh, that'll be a great member experience.
They won't if they're not charging for it, then you'd have to do that. To your point. Otherwise, no one ever learns their lesson. I mean, my son would be like, oh, they gave me a free credit line.
As Jim says, there is a cost involved in returning items. There's no question. And the fees are a deterrent. Those are absolutely true. And by the way, Madison or Melissa, there's a great conversation going on in the chat. Can we somehow make sure that we save that? Because I know that
it'll get saved as part of it. I'll make sure we have it.
We'll have a transcript.
But like I say, we can go much deeper into that. But there are, Wells is making that part of a centerpiece of their TV ad campaign right now. you get an extra day to make yourself whole. Blue, maybe you should change to Wells because you could have had that extra day to get the money moved over and you wouldn't have gotten charged.
He,
Yeah.
he has to play. He has to bank where he banks, or he'll be in trouble. They'll find
On
him.
to open banking. Lou, I've been doing all the talking. You wanna kind of kick us off on this one? This got a significant level of interest, and this one is the one that the Fed did not, or the CFPB rather, did not extend the deadline. They had a relatively tight window, and they did a lot. They got a lot of feedback on this one. It was a long proposal they put out that was fairly vague, and they got a lot of feedback back on it, and we'll see how much of it they actually take to heart.
And the fact that they did not extend the deadline for comments kind of leads people to believe that this is going to happen no matter what the comments said. Full disclosure, I am, PSU did provide our comments, and I'm happy, it's public, and so I'm happy to summarize those. I also am a vice chair on the Financial Data Exchange, FDX, and FDX has developed an open data, open banking set of standards, and is also proposing a certification program, which would have a cost element associated with it, to certify those entities that are participating in open banking. And FDX, by the way, has a global summit coming up. I believe the open banking means I am giving my permission for some data entity to access information from my DDA. That permission is granted for a specific time frame, and when it expires, if it's not renewed, it does not continue. It's also for a specific account. So that's kind of important. I want my cash balances at my credit union to be folded into my aggregating software, PFM software, but I'm not necessarily wanting my credit card transactions and balances, my debit transactions, to be given away. However, if my credit union does not support the APIs, and that's the second element, APIs, that are part of open banking standards, then I don't really have any control because I'm just giving away my username and password, and all of that information is available. And what's being done today for financial institutions that don't support open banking is screen scraping. And I know we throw that word around a lot, and it's kind of a misnomer. The Plaids, Finicities, Yodleys of the world are not actually trying to pick up text off of the screen necessarily, but they are logging in using a username and password that I provided that they're storing on my behalf. And so if I change my password, then that breaks. If the screens get modified, then that can break. Also, open banking, what CFPB proposes to do, which we are a proponent of, is eliminate screen scraping and replace it with API access, which is controlled per account. By the way, it doesn't just have to be my credit union account information being given out. It could be my credit union accessing information from a different financial institution. That access is granted by a token, which works even as I change my password, which everybody should be doing. And the CFPB has also proposed that it's not just the balances in chartered financial institutions, but the balance in Apple Cash, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. The CFPB wants those to be included in this data exchange element as well. Let me stop there, see if I generated any questions.
Well, let me take a step back on that just to give a broader picture of the landscape. As people probably know, open banking has already been the law in the UK and EU for some time. The stated intent, both there and here, is to try to increase competition. In theory, it should make it easier to change banks or credit unions or financial institutions in either direction. You could lose accounts, you can gain accounts, but it also is intended to create more innovation and make it easier for non-banks and fintech players to get some of this information to fuel some of these kind of new use cases and value-added services. So, there's a lot there. And as you point out, Lou, if this were to fully take effect, we, would potentially see the end. I mean, in theory, it will wipe out and end the whole practice of screen scraping, which should be a big boon in terms of improved security. So if that's one piece that I think there's no question would be a net positive on this one. But, it's one of those devil in the detail kind of things too. And this is one where I think is really interesting. John, you've made a big point. It was one of your big credit union New Year's resolutions of defend your data, protect your data.
Yeah.
Depending on your semantic approach, and as Lou says, it's pretty clear that something's going to happen here. It may not be exactly what was put out, but something's going to happen. So it's one of those, make a good effort to figure out how to capitalize on this and use it to your credit union's benefit, rather than have it be something that's done to you and winds up being nothing but a net negative.
Well, it was interesting. So I knew this was coming up, and I wanted to see how it compared to GDPR. And actually, Mike brought that up. He said, as usual, they're ahead of us across the pond. And so I had actually gone into my good friend. Now his name is Copilot Pro, which I'll be doing some demonstrations of in the future. Man, that thing is crazy. But I was curious as to what it would say, comparing the two. And I put the overview in there, and it's interesting. Like GDPR goes to your healthcare and everything else in Europe. Here we're just looking at financial data, but it does beg this sort of interesting opportunity, because here's the thing: if my member is requesting all this data, right, that means they're going to take it somewhere and do something with it, right? Why couldn't we be the thing? Why couldn't we be on the other end of that as a interesting way? What are the home banking providers going to do? Because as Lou points out, you need, it's supposed to be done through an API. He mentioned FTX, which he's on the board. I was actually just talking, and he's not here today, to Ty Robbins from Cinchi, and he's pretty amazing. He's doing some really cool stuff because they see this coming, and they're building out collaboration so that you can combine that data in a meaningful way with other data. Because that also means that there's probably the opportunity, if we're going to start pushing everything into this format, for credit unions to do more collaboration around data. But I'm just curious, the GDPR thing, it's interesting to see how it morphed here with regard to data rights and what that means. And does that also mean it should go both ways? I don't know why this doesn't cover retailers. I want to know what's on the receipt from Amazon. I don't want to just know how much it is. I want to know what they spent. I want to know where it came from. I want my receipts in home banking. That's what I want. That's the dream.
That's interesting. I wonder, unless I'm not doing it right, the database where you can see all the
to the CFPB proposed rulemaking, while we do believe that open banking is a good thing, it's safer, and prohibiting screen scraping is to everybody's benefit, there's two pieces of the proposed rulemaking that hurt. One is that financial institutions are prohibited from recovering their costs, either from the user or from the data aggregator. Basically, no, you can't recover the costs. And it's mandatory for all financial institutions. I don't recall seeing any kind of threshold or carve out or exemption.
There actually, Lou, there is one. It's very, very low. Unless they change it, I doubt it would actually apply to anybody on this call.
Okay. Thanks. One thing that, from now taking that hat off and putting on my FTX hat kind of thing, my open banking proponent hat, there's a couple of use cases here that are promising. So PFM Mint was the poster child of PFM and kind of the poster child for screen scraping too. Intuit has discontinued Mint, which says something. What we're seeing is a lot of neobanks, especially, are now Bella, Revolut, Dave, all offer some aspect of allowing their customer to aggregate their data, their information, their balances from other financial institutions. So basically, they're kind of continuing that Mint concept, but within their digital banking. I would love to see credit unions do that, and there's no reason why they can't. So PFM for financial institutions is a great use case. Digital identity was something that I was reading on CU Insight, and a couple more. Taxes, right? So now you should be thinking about that. You're probably like me getting information in the mail, the paper mail, with your 1099 INTs and 1099 DIVs. Wouldn't it be great if you would just give permission to an aggregator that's working with the person who does your taxes, and that information is collected digitally and fed in without you having to receive these things in the mail, scan them in, and then either upload them or bring a big package of paper to your tax preparer?
Well, and even what's interesting about that, to your point, Lou, is that it creates the portability of the documents is important, but also the accessibility, right? So with a statement today, for example, if you wanted to go back in time on history, and the best you could do is get statements from your credit union, those statements are not something that are indexable or searchable. They're print files. You can, if you know what you're doing, like I do this a lot for folks, I'd convert them to text and put them into a database, but that's not trivial, and the average person can't do that, and neither can the average tax firm. So the data portability and the processability or the accessibility of it, I think, is also another big play, because there are things that I think get missed in taxes and whatnot, because it's human error to look, especially if you got a large account with a lot of transactions. It's hard to find certain things. So yeah, it's going to be curious. But the other thing that's going to do is it's going to create a tremendous opportunity for AI, because when that data becomes more accessible in a way, then the digital identity, and I picture that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say UX with regard to home banking is yesterday's news. It's going to go the way of the dodo. This clicking around and trying to figure out where you can turn off your statements or whatnot. What you want is a ChatGPT type experience where you say, turn off my statements. And it goes, sure, for which accounts? And you go, these, and it goes, great. And you don't log in and click 10 different things and do all this stuff. I think that's the dream, right? Along with sort of autonomous banking, and this could lead to that. And then that does present an interesting problem, because it also moves us out of our marketing, right? So we're not getting those eyeballs in the home banking where we can present to them. It's going to make it much more important, your outbound outreach marketing through email, text, whatever else you have to communicate with them, because you're not getting them coming in and seeing that stuff on the website and on presumably on the inside the home banking.
I know we're coming up on time. I know we got to leave some time to spin.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
In my mind, one, the core providers are going to have to play a big role, because the credit union doesn't control the ability to make this happen. They're going to need their core's cooperation. How long that takes, how much that costs, they're not really at the table. It's
it might also be
the
the
CFPB seems to be saying, "Oh, just make it happen." You credit union, go tell the core to do it. We know how well that works, so that's going to be true.
I don't think it's going to be the core, Glenn.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I think it's home banking. I think it's the Alchemies, the Q2s.
Same basic logic. I mean, whether you're
it is. I'm just saying it's not going to be the Jack Henrys. It's going to be the Banos and Q2s and those kinds of guys that are going to have to, because they're the forward-facing interface now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I know Fiserv's got a whole team of data integration, people who are getting involved. In fact, there's a payments journal web podcast about that with him right now. The other one that I'll point out is the thing that really concerns me is the whole notion of trust with the member. We all know members will click on T's and C's without reading them. How do you know you've actually got informed consent? If someone clicked "I agree" and some not necessarily virtuous act,
So I'm gonna
got
take
their
you back.
approval.
I'm gonna take you back to the AI of this. That's where AI is going to make a big difference is in EULAs and T's and C's, because it's going to have the ability to scan for anything that you're going to set parameters in it and say, look, I don't want to sign anything that says this, or this, and it'll read through all that crap legally. Have you ever seen how fast ChatGPT can read something? You can post
that's all
10. I think that's the future of this.
It's all fine and good, but it's not there today. And it's
I know,
but
but this is a stepping stone in that direction, I think. But no, I don't disagree. But guess what? It doesn't matter what I think, because it's time to give away something, Glenn. And nobody, we got to get to the VR thing here. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, if you're not a credit union employee, we're not going to put you on the list here. So we apologize for that. I should have told you ahead of time. I know Julie and
it was in the T's and C's. I think.
You clicked OK when you came in. We're going to start having a disclosure.
If you didn't get AI to look at the EULA.
So today we're on behalf of William Mills. We're going to give away a great system here. We're going to give away the Quest 3, and I guess we're ready to spin, right?
Please do.
All right. We should have like a spin that wheel or something. I don't know. But let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Oh, Mark Wilson. Hey, Mark. Of all the people I know on this call, the people I do know, he loves this thing. We've had a lot of fun together with it in the Innovation Club. We built the Meta branch together. We were all in it and kind of poking around. So I know you're going to love this device, Mark. It's way better than the previous one. So congratulations on that.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
We have some really cool other giveaways that we're giving away. We've reached out to this interesting company that does AI note taking that you attach to your phone. That uses OpenAI services and Azure services. Pretty curious. So we got some cool stuff. I want to thank Lou for taking the time today to this is not his regular job, and he often chimes in with just incredible information. And as always, his position within the industry is really important in the fact he's so good at sharing. So thank you, Lou, so much for taking the time today. And always Glenn. Glenn is a fantastic and incredible resource. Many thanks to all of our sponsors, and we hope you'll attend next time. We'll get some more information about what's coming up, but we thank you for coming, and congratulations to Mark Wilson. All right, everybody. Oh, wait, give a thumbs
John.
up.
Thanks, Lou.
The thumbs up. There you go. I got a thumbs up. See my thumbs up bubble?
Oh, mine's not on.
All right, you got to learn. You got to learn to do that, everybody, for next time. Get your thumbs up bubble working. There's all kinds of AI stuff in Zoom. It's crazy. And everything these days. They're popping up everywhere. AI assistant, AI assistant. I encourage you to click on all of them. See what happens. Anyways, all right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.